Before we go over the formulas and how to obtain the correlational coefficient, let's first discuss what it's for. Now, don't let past statistical experiences scare you, since this concept is actually quite easy.
A correlational coefficient is a number that tells you if two variables have a relationship. We use this for examples like temperature and sales in hot coffee or amount of food crumbs and sightings of roaches.
Like all good data, visualizing can make it simple to understand. In our concept, we make use of a scatter plot where one variable is on the x-axis and the other is on the y-axis. Relationships can either be positive, negative, weak, or non-existent, shown respectively by data points in both variables going higher, going lower, weak or vague, in that it is not as consistent, and then being totally random. We call these as linear relationships.
There is also something called a curvilinear or nonlinear relationship that shifts in relationships at some point.
Numerically, the coefficient is described as a number, from plus 1 being a positive relationship, minus 1 being negative relationship, and 0 as in no relationship.
Let's now talk about how to get the coefficient. And there are two formulas, Pearson R and Spearman Rho. It's better to have your data ready so we can just substitute the values in our data with the variables in the formulas. Starting with the Pearson R, which we use to describe two interval variables, two ratio variables, or one interval and one ratio variable.
First, have your data prepared. We'll substitute any variable for the corresponding data on the formula. From here on out, it should be easy. N is the number of respondents there are. 6 rows, so we put in 6. We multiply this by the sum of the products of x and y. The product we get is then subtracted from the product of the sum of x and the sum of y. Once you have that calculated, we move to the denominator.
In the first bracket, we have n, which we already know is 6 times the sum of the squared values in the x column. We subtract this by the sum of the x column, which is then squared. The difference will then be multiplied to the product of the n, which is 6, to the sum of the squared values of the y column. The product is then subtracted by the sum of the y column squared.
Now, if you could see, the entire denominator is square rooted, so once you calculate everything, you square root the denominator. From here, just follow the formula like so.
Next up is Spearman's rank order. It is used in determining the correlation between two rankings. Have the data at the ready in this manner and substitute the data as required by the formula.
In this case, however, d sub I squared refers to the items under the difference column which have been squared. It is then summed up and multiplied to 6, a constant. On the denominator, n is the number of cases or respondents. Follow the formula as follows.